Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. Today, I'm excited. We're going to have a fun, kind of relaxing class today where I share a fun spring color combo. We're going to do a bit of coloring, and I'm going to be sharing one of my favorite retiring stamp sets and some other fun products. So, thanks for hanging out with me. If you're taking the time to watch the replay, I always appreciate it. Be sure you can leave a comment and say hello and like this video. I should introduce myself. I always introduce myself. My name is Lori DeGroot from Loritamarie Crafts, and I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Calgary, and I like to come here live so I can share tips, techniques, ideas, inspiration with you to help you take your paper crafting supplies and turn them into beautiful projects. So one way, like I always say, that I like to do that is my classes. And so before we get going into our cute projects today, I do want to share the two classes that I have going on right now because they're pretty fun. I'm like excited about them. Great kind of spring theme going on here. And the first one features the Lovely Garden Suite. And so this is my Stamp and Create class, which is an online class that anyone can take. So there's a tutorial option for anybody. And you just watch the video on your own time to make the projects. And then if you live in Canada, then there's also the to-go kit where I give you the supplies that you need. Everything's cut and prepped for you. And then you get to make the projects. And so I'm going to give you little sneak peeks today. I want to see. So the first one we're going to make is this cute little box that opens up, and then you're making a set of 4 note cards. So you're going to learn how to make the box, plus you've got 4 unique cards that feature the Thankful Garden bundles. You're definitely going to want to get that bundle so that you can create with those beautiful flowers. And then we're also going to make another cute little box. So I'll just show you the little sneak peek of that. So those are the projects for the Stamp and Create class. And all my classes are on my website, loritamarie.crafts.ca, under paper crafting classes. So you can find out. And the second one I'm doing is it's local, but there's also a tutorial that you can take, and it's going to be about coloring blends and backgrounds. So I'm trying something different. I've been working on my coloring, which is why we're going to do coloring today. And I'm just going to show you a little sneak of some of the cards that we're going to do, but you're going to get some coloring techniques. These are obviously not finished, but we're going to make some backgrounds, and we're going to just have a great time, just kind of learning some tips and techniques. So that one's called my Technique Taster, so you can find that on my website as well. That's all the chit chat. I don't like to like babble on too long here because we're here for the crafting. So I'm going to take you down to my lovely desk here, and we will get to crafting. So right now it's kind of like a fun time in Stamping Up because we're like saying goodbye to some things and getting excited about bringing in some new things next month. And so we have got products that are retiring. Like this is stamp set here. We have products that are new that just came out this month, online exclusives that I'm going to show you in a second. Plus, we have things that are carrying over so that they're continuing, so they're not retiring. So it can be a little confusing, but that's why the online store, you can always just check out what's available. If you see it in the store, then you know it's available. So Memorable Bloom stamp set was in the January to April mini, and it is retiring. And now it was a bundle, and the dies have already sold out, but the stamp set is still available. And I'm going to tell you, I never even got the dies. I just got the stamp set because I love that it had a few flower images in it, and I love the sentiments in it. So I always love sentiments that are mixed with like a couple different fonts, and they're just kind of like different than some other stamp sets. So I really like this one. So that's what we're going to color with today. And we're going to be using a new set of dies here that came out in April with the online exclusives. And so it is part of a whole suite. And I keep forgetting the name of the suite, but the dies are called Textured Notes. And this is just how I store my dies. I just get little magnetic sheets, and I always label them, and then I have them in a bin, and then I can see exactly what they're called easily. But I've been dying for new rectangles, and so check these out. Look at all, they have this great texture borders, and they're all like a little unique, a little different. I think there's, I don't know how many. Some are duplicates, but some, are just unique kind of designs. And look at all those great shapes, plus like a nice long skinny one for long sentiments or just to create like a little background piece. But rectangles for me are a little bit of a staple. We haven't had any rectangles for a while. And I'm very excited about them, and I've started to kind of use them on everything. Great staples like this one, and the Spotlight on Nature dies, which are circles. Those are ones that you're going to use over and over and over again, and great value. So that's what we're going to use today. So let's get started with the stamping, okay? And we're going to do a bit of coloring. So you've got all these great sizes. The biggest size here, let me just show, let's see. Yeah, 4 by 5.5 almost. And so this is going to fit. Let's bring out a card here. So this is a card base, and it basically fills the whole card base but gives you a little border. So that's the largest rectangle. And I'm using the next size down, and then it's got that great little texture on it. And so then I can mat it a couple times. And so I've got a fun way that we're going to create that as well. So we're going to start with this. Because this doesn't, you can't get the dies anymore, I don't want to worry about cutting this out or fussy cutting. So we're just going to stamp it on this piece. And because it has this nice frame already, then you don't have to cut it out. It's like we've already framed it out. So I'm just going to use my Memento black, and we're going to ink this up, and then we're going to do some coloring here. And spring has finally sprung in Calgary, so I'd love you to say hi and tell me where you're watching from, and if it's spring weather, or if you're far away, you might have different seasons altogether. But Calgary has notoriously slow springs, or it's like really beautiful one day and then totally snowy the next day, and so you never know what you're going to get in April. But I was out for a little bit in my yard yesterday, and I saw a blue jay and I saw a robin. So I figure spring has arrived. So we're not allowed to have any more bad weather. All right, so here is the image. So you can see it's a nice size. It fills this whole piece really beautifully, and it's going to help you just make beautiful cards. And this is my color. Let's go with the color combo. So we're going to be using the Stampin Blends, and we're going to use Pretty in Pink, Lemon Lolly, Old Olive, and Misty Moonlight. And now I'd love to hear if you like coloring, if you have used the blends before, if you're really into it. I'm going to start with the leaves here and use Old Olive. I love coloring. I actually even just like coloring for fun. So I'm really into it. But I'm trying to improve my own coloring skills. And that's kind of why I'm doing the class this month, is that we can all learn some techniques together and improve our coloring skills and the way that these markers blend. So they're called Stampin' Blends because they're alcohol markers, which means, you know, like the ink blends out together, and so you don't have like the lines of a regular marker. And there's just like a lot of different fun techniques that you can do, and you can keep it real simple. And so today I'm just going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to start with the dark Old Olive, and we're just going to go up the bottom of the leaves. And these little itty bitty, you probably can't see, I'll bring it up in a minute, but things that are teeny tiny, you can just kind of do little dots with your bullet tip end, just like little dots, and the ink will just fill in that space. And so you don't have to worry about like, oh, how am I going to get in there? And these ones, you'll see they have kind of like a, they have lines on half of the leaves. So I'm just going to put the dark on those ones that have the lines, and these ones that don't have any lines, I'm just going to kind of go up a little bit from the bottom. And we're just, because these are small and I can kind of get to them quickly, I'm going to color them all in at once with the dark. I think what I like the most about the blends is, like I said, you can really just keep it basic. Like, you know, you don't want to do too much shading or all that kind of stuff. Or people have just, there are people out there who are so talented, who do all this amazing shading and coloring and stuff. And so you can really build your skills as you go along. Okay, these bigger ones, I'm actually going to flip to the brush end, and I'm just going to like flick up a little bit along that line. And I'll try to maybe pick up the pace here so that you're not watching me color all day. But I find like coloring very relaxing. Because I've been practicing, I stamped a whole bunch of things in the black ink and on the weekend, and then I just practiced coloring, and it was kind of fun. Okay, so I'm gonna go over everything that I've done and just kind of start at the dark and just kind of blend out a little bit. So one thing that I learned is I used to color everything in light first, then go over the dark, and then kind of keep going back and forth. But you can start with the dark and then just kind of, you don't have to go over the whole thing again. You can just kind of go for where the two connect and blend out from there. And so I am going to use the bullet tip end on this light just because we got to get in all these little tiny areas. And so there's a little bit less of like back and forth coloring like you might do with a pencil crayon or something like that. Um, and a little more like one direction. I don't know if that makes sense. And a couple more. Okay, and then as soon as I'm done the leaves, I'll bring it up and then you can kind of see a little bit closer. I don't have a way to zoom in really with this camera here, but okay, so then what you can do too is if you want, now that you've got a light, if you want to add a little bit more dark, you could go in and add a little bit more. And you can be as fussy or as unfussy as you want to be, right? So you can keep, the beauty of the blends is that you can keep layering on a little bit of color and it just keeps blending. So you don't have to be afraid of like getting it all right from the first time. So that looks not bad. So then what I'm going to do is I want to bring in a hint of the Misty Moonlight because I'm going to use some paper that has Misty Moonlight in it. So I'm just going to do these little bud flowers. And I know technically there's not too many blue flowers out there, but I just wanted to tie in our colors. When we're making crafts, it doesn't have to be true to life. So we're going to add a little Misty Moonlight. That's the light Misty Moonlight, just as those teeny tiny little ones. And then we're going to add some of the Lemon Lolly. And I'm going to keep up with the brush or the brush tip end because, no, the bullet end. I got to get this right. So I'm going to do this little one. Going to do this little one. And I'm going to do this one here. And I'm just going to go out from the center of these flowers and just keep it pretty simple. We have two yellows. I think there's just two. I don't think Crushed Curry comes in a Stampin' Blends. So we have Lemon Lolly, which is a little bit sunnier, a little brighter. And then we have Daffodil Delight, which is a little richer. So we've got two great yellows to choose from. Okay, and just make sure your lids are closed up. And then we're going to use Pretty in Pink. And go ahead and do the rest of these flowers, and then I'll bring it back up again. Oh, I think I was supposed to do yellow in the center. So I'm going to do, you could add a little yellow. I'll show you on these big ones. Let's see. Bring this up here. So you can kind of go darker where the little folds of the flower, like the flower has been folding in on itself. So we can do that. Here, before I forget, I'm just going to take the bullet tip end of the yellow. And for these two big ones here, I'm just going to do little dots in the center just to bring in a little yellow. There we go. And I think I'm going to use and then I'm just going to go out from the center and kind of flick out from the center a little bit. And these are pretty small flowers, so it's kind of nice because you don't have to have like massive techniques or anything. Whatever you do is going to look awesome. And my advice, if you're just starting out, like there are a lot of blend colors that you have, and I'm like been working on my collection. And so I almost have all the colors I want now. And you don't have to have every color either. So my suggestion is that you start, if you think you're going to color flowers a lot, then get a green, get a yellow, and get a pink or purple, depending what your favorite color is, and go from there. And once you've got those three, you're going to be able to color quite a lot of things. Um, and then you can build out from there. And sometimes it just depends on the stamp set. If you like the ones with the people in them, then you might want to get some skin tone stamp sets. Skin tone blends. Oh my word. I can't color and talk at the same time. That's tricky. I missed a leaf here. Okay. So that's it. I was trying to go pretty fast so that we could get through that. Just move these out of the way. And then we'll bring it up here. So just simple, but that looks all right. And for my card base today, I'm going to be using basic beige. And the paper I'm going to be using is something that's returning. So it doesn't look like much on that side, but if you recognize this, it's the Wildly Flowering DSP. And a lot of the DSP is actually not retiring, so we don't have to be too sad about things disappearing. But I like this paper, so even though some of the in colors that are retiring, so the 2023 to 2025 in colors, they were in this DSP, like Wild Wheat and Moody Mauve and Boho Blue. It's got Crumb Cake, and it's got, I think, Mossy Meadow, and it's got Misty Moonlight. And so there's colors that we can carry on and keep using this if you don't have those in colors. And I'm just layering up a couple pieces here. So the blue one, which is like Misty Moonlight, and hi, Debbie. This is 3.5 by 5, and this is 4 by 5.25. And I just felt like I wanted to add a little texture to it, and I wasn't really sure how to do that. But then I thought, I just want to rough up the edges a bit. So I don't know if you can see this paper itself, right? Looks like it's textured. And I'm just going to use the edge of the scissors, but don't cut yourself. These are the paper snips, and they're very sharp. But it's just going to release like the white core of the DSP. And then it just adds a little more interest when I'm layering up all these papers. So you can do as much or as little as you want. If you've got like a special sanding, little sandpaper, whatever you got. But that worked, and that was easy. And now you can see I've got that little bit of white border around it. And so I'm going to do the same thing I don't know, this to the crumb cake one. And it's a little messy, but that's all right. And we'll just scrape this one up. All right. Okay, so however fussy you want to be, I always find when I'm doing my videos, I'm like not as careful as I am the first time I'm designing a card. You get faster the second time. Okay, now I'm covered in a little bit of paper. So now we're just going to layer these three pieces up. So this is not a fussy card. And I'm just going to use some seal. And then these pieces layer up. And then we'll put this on our card. And the reason I used the basic beige card base is that I started with a white and it was a bit too stark. And then I went to crumb cake and it was a bit too dark. And so then I was like, well, what else would look kind of, this is kind of a natural look that I'm going for. And then I tried the basic beige and it was perfect. So I recommend basic beige as a great neutral. It just came in last year. But you can see that it's just kind of the right tone for this card. And we'll just fold this up. And then we're going to add our sentiment to it. So that already looks great. And then I've gone ahead and done my sentiments ahead of time because I wanted to emboss them. But let's bring back our trusty new dies here, the textured notes dies. And my favorite size at the moment is the second smallest one here. And it's perfect for so many sentiments for the stamp sets that I have right now. And obviously there's one bigger, which is going to be great. And so I went ahead and cut it out in old olive and I stamped from the stamp set. So I appreciate your thoughtfulness. And I'm just going to add, and so because, you know, the flower is kind of the star of this card, so we're not going to add a whole lot else. And I am going to add a little bit of linen thread just because I feel like it. But you don't have to even add any embellishments if you don't want to this card. It would look great on its own. I'm just going to tie a bow if I can. Okay, that's not that great, but I can fuss with it later. And I'm going to put the sentiment up on dimensionals. Yeah, Debbie, the basic beige is such a great addition to our colors, I think. And these rectangles, it's a must, not a must have, because I'm not going to tell you must have everything, but I think this is great value. You're going to get a lot of use out of the texture note sides. So I made a little bow with some linen thread, and I'm going to maybe improve my bow later, but I'm just going to add it to the corner. And then I was going through my embellishments and seeing what would look great. And actually, the antique pearls, which are sticking around, are perfect. They just like a little bit of elegance, if that makes sense. And the way that they kind of shimmer and bring on like a little, you know, you've got different kind of tones in the color. I don't know if it shows up on the video, but those pearls, they're one of my new favorites. So that is our first card. And so then I want to show another version. Of course, I'm always making two on here. Oh, I think I lost. Gem fell off there. Just put that back. Okay, for the second one, I've got the same rectangle that I cut out for the first one, but I'm going to put it the other way. And then we are going to stamp the leaf image. And grab that, and we're going to stamp in black again. You can use any water-based ink pad with your Stampin' Blends. So the blends are alcohol, so it needs to have the opposite, so you want the water. So you can use any of our classic ink pads as well if you don't want something as harsh as black. But black is just great to have a clear line of what you're coloring to, right? Okay, so I stamped one up towards the top right, oops, and then I'm going to do kind of the opposite towards the bottom left, like so. And then while I have the ink out on a separate piece of paper, I am going to fussy cut out one thing. Sorry about that. But there's another little flower image. And I'm just going to go this way just to make sure I have good coverage. And we're going to color that one as well. And try not to get black ink all over myself. So on the leaves, I'm going to use the bullet tip end of the Misty Moonlight to color in these tiny little pieces. And I found that I could just kind of quickly flick up and it would just fill that little leaf because they are pretty small. And then it didn't take me forever, but then I could still add some color to them. So again, this is just a little way to add a little bit of that Misty Moonlight in there. I feel like this is probably very tiny for you to watch. But I haven't colored on one of these videos. I don't know if I have done lots of coloring on here, a little bit, I guess. But I don't know, I just felt in the mood to do some more coloring. I find when I don't know, maybe when you're feeling a little overwhelmed or things are going on, you need a hobby that's a little like mindless, right? That's kind of takes your mind off of things. And so I feel like coloring is that for me. So we're just gonna flick up and kind of just alternating the sides and getting in all our tiny little leaves. There, that's that. And then we'll go back to our old olive for our leaves. And so again, just to be quick, I'm just gonna quickly kind of brush up from the bottom along the center of the leaf. And then these little guys, while I have the marker out, there's again, they're in half. Half of them have like little lines. And so I'm going to put the dark on the part with the lines. A lot of times, like if you're unsure about shading something, the stamp set itself will have lines for you to follow. And then you don't have to figure it out, which is helpful. And you don't want your ink to dry out too much between things. So if you were doing a larger image, then it's good to finish one part of it before you move on to the next thing, just so your ink is still kind of wet so that it blends a little bit better. And I'm just trying to blend out from the dark, just kind of flicking out. And like I said, I'd probably be a little more careful if I wasn't on the video, but that looks pretty good. And then again, if you want, you can just keep going and keep layering up your dark and light and keep shading out however you want to do that. So this is this one here. Yeah, Debbie, I haven't used this stamp set much either. I loved it. Oh, the other end just blew off. Sorry about that. I loved the stamp set right when I saw it in the catalog, and it was one of the first ones that I got, and then I didn't use it that much, which is kind of funny. Sometimes that happens, right? So you got to explore. And sometimes when it's not in a suite, this was just a bundle, then you have to come up with like a color combo of your own. So I should grab, I was meant to grab it. I did a card with this set. Now I'm going to do the flower. I did a card with this set full on bright orange and pink. So it's completely different than this one. So I think I will grab it for you. And then you can see this stamp set in a totally different light. Okay, I think I wanted a little yellow in the middle again. So again, I just got my dark lemon lolly and I'm just kind of doing little dots because there's little dots in the flower. So just following the lead of the designer who already, there is an artist out there coming up with this stuff, so I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Then I'm just going to flick out and then go on the outer edge of these petals just because the flower looks like it's kind of curling up a bit. Yeah, so if you want to learn more about coloring, yeah, don't try out my technique taster class. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Okay. And then you can add a little bit more dimension again by going back over with your dark. There. And then if you got the dies, there is a die that cuts this out, but like I said, the dies have already sold out. So if you don't have them, then you can just do this stamping direct on paper, kind of like what I've shown here. But this one isn't too big. So I thought, you know what, I could fussy cut out this one part. And remember, just kind of let the paper do the turning. right? So I'm using my left hand to turn the paper, and then that just makes it easier to go around all the curves. And then we'll come around. Okay. There, and now we can just finish up this card. And it's like a little twin to the first one, but slightly different. So that it could make a good set. So we've got basic beige again, and I'm going to go landscape way instead of portrait ways. And then I'm still using the Wildly Flowering DSP, but this time I'm going to use the pattern side. So it's lots of, I love this paper. It's so pretty. So this time I've got this one, and these are pieces that I had cut. So sometimes I just work with, you know, paper that I already have cut. This was the dimensions it was, so that's what I'm using. Sometimes that's how cards come to life. But this one is 5 1/4 by, I have it here somewhere, by 3 3/4. And I will try to get that straight. And that's kind of got the misty moonlight background. And this one I love with the kind of crumb cake, that kind of natural flower look, but we're not going to see too much of it anyway. But I'm going to put this back there. And this one is 5 by 3 1/2. Yeah, 5 by 3 1/2. Then we'll put on the one we did with the leaves. Okay. And then that kind of centers in there. So you can see how I've used basically the same layout, but it looks different, right? You just tweak a few things and then it looks different. And then this time I've got my sentiment and Misty Moonlight, and you were awesome. I think you were awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me here today. And the first one I tied a bow somewhat successfully. This time I'm gonna do my little loop-de-loop back and forth. So it looks like a bow without actually tying it. And stick it in a glue dot. And I'm just gonna put it kind of at the top corner of this so that it kind of lays out with the leaves. And then we're gonna add some dimensionals. And put this on next. And it's going to be a little off to the side because we have our flower to add on still, right? So I want my flower to connect to the greenery. And then I'll just grab a dimensional up here by the leaves and then use my seal kind of at the bottom. And then just kind of put that however you like. And then I find if my tails are sticking out weird, I try to tuck them into my loop. And then they kind of sit behind it, sort of. There, so they're not sticking out. And we'll add some more of those fun pearls. So all these products you can still get today. The only thing retiring is the stamp set. Everything else is continuing on. And the textured notes dies are brand spanking new. So if you haven't seen them yet, go check out the online exclusives. And maybe there's some new things that you have missed that might be the perfect addition to your crafting. And so there is our second card. Oh, thanks, Debbie. And there's a little matching set. So you can see, wouldn't that be a fun, right? And then you could do one with the pink and then you would have like a little set. That would be cute. I'm going to just wait 1 second. I have a card I'm going to show you in the different colors. Okay, so check this out, right? Like completely different. We have got, this was the Ocean Friends DSP, which is also retiring. But like full on pumpkin pie and melon mambo. And check that out. Oh, and summer splash, right? So you can very natural, very organic looking, or like go wild and crazy with the bright colors. So I love this stamp set. So that was fun to play with. So thanks for hanging out. I hope that was fun to get some different ideas there on how to color your images. Of course, you can tweak that to whatever flower images that you have and kind of create similar looks for your cards. If you want to learn more about coloring, I highly recommend that you check out my technique taster class. We're going to make the prettiest cards. Um, and we're just going to take it nice and slow and easy and all just kind of learn how to color together. And it's going to be a really good time, I think. So that's next week. Um, the deadline is next Thursday for that one. So you definitely want to check that one out so you don't miss out. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. And I will be back next week. And starting next week are sneak peeks of new stuff. So I'm going to be showing off the brand new in colors that will be coming out with the annual catalog on May the 6th. So you don't want to miss that one. So I'll see you here guys next week. Bye bye.